It is December 21st at 5:32 PM, and I will call the Board of Directors regular meeting for Lawrence Community Shelter to order. The first item on our, well, first, can everybody hear me? Can I get a thumbs up for those that are on Zoom? Okay, thank you. First item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there any additions, any changes anybody would like to make tonight? All right, then can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
And a second? Thank you. The motion is made to approve the agenda and it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Nay. And motion approved. So the next item on our agenda is the regular agenda. Consider approval of the 2024 Lawrence Community Shelter operating budget. I'm gonna click here. Can you guys see the budget in front of you? Okay, thank you. So we have a balanced budget to present tonight. As you might have paid attention to the City Commission meeting on Tuesday, they approved a funding agreement with us that will significantly enhance our ability to meet the expected needs in the community. The approval was for $2,677,696. That's a significant improvement from any historical budget for the shelter. I walked through the budget with the City Commission on Tuesday, and I was just gonna walk through it with you guys. And then we can take any questions before considering approval. So generally, kind of a broad way to look at it is it's about a $2 million increase in our budget for this current year. And that accounts for the expenses that are accounted for, or that are about that 2 million. 1.8 is increased payroll expenses, and about 200,000 is facility costs, which is where you'll find expenses related to food service operations. So otherwise, what for the most part, what the exec committee did was we went through line by line the proposals that were presented in our study sessions by Misty and by Melanie, and we just determined what we thought was the better, or the in between, or the closer to. So we just essentially reviewed those and then decided on what we thought would be the appropriate amount for the budget. And so for the most part, Melanie's data was considered to be more perhaps up to date. She also injected some projections that helped us to know, like, where do we stand today? Where do we think we'll end the year? So that was helpful. And then where we really we didn't have a lot to go on was around the payroll expenses, because we had discussions around two different staffing proposals. And we felt like the best approach would be to say, let's find a middle ground between these two and settle on that for now. And we knew that we would have to do some further work in the new year once clarity comes around with the bargaining with the union. So we felt like for now, it was a reasonable way to approach setting up what we plan for our expenses for personnel. There were a few other things that we knew were not going to be budgeted, and we would likely have to revisit the budget perhaps after the first quarter of the new year. And that would be anything that relates to pallet 45, which is the recommendation by the city to add more pallet shelters in the, near the campus of our current facility. And then we also knew that there were some maintenance expenses that might be unknown to us at this point, and a lot of that the city has been covering a lot of those expenses, and so it was one of those, we will pay attention to this, and after the first quarter, as we see better understanding of what our maintenance needs are, we might need to adjust that. And then the other area was just food service. We just need to pay attention to that one too, and if we can keep that cost contained, great. If we see that we're having to purchase a lot of food and other supplies, then we might need to make an adjustment there, so. That's it for my presentation of the budget, and if there are any questions, Melanie is also happy to explain some of this too, so.
Thank you, Charlie. I had a question, just skimming through this, and also because of bank, and it was on my mind today, with Bank Midwest, but under admin and the 2021 actuals, and then the 2024 budget, could you just give a little bit of a detail about the difference between the 9,304 and the 750? As I'm looking at the bank charges and fees. And
Melanie, is that something you could help us with?
yeah, I just want a little bit of clarity on those, the difference between the numbers.
Is it a different bank?
No, it just may be that we have several charges, and some of them are merchant charges that have to do with whenever people make a donation, we have a surcharge essentially for that transaction. And what I would suspect is those charges were being logged under the bank charges and fees when they are now processed under the, there's fundraising charges. Up
In the lines above it.
in the line above it on the 53030, the fundraising credit card processing fees. And if you look on 2021, that's blank. So I would assume that they were kind of dumping those all into the same pot at that time.
Okay,
Good question.
yeah, well, thank you.
I think some of the challenges around budgeting when you look back is if costs are accounted for differently year to year, then sometimes that historical trend is harder to understand. And that's, you'd have to dig deeper, but that makes a lot of sense what Melanie described.
Out of curiosity, what percentage do we cover of employees' health insurance?
80%?
80? Okay, thank you. I was just curious. So is that, is this percentage, is this amount for health insurance, is that 80% of the total cost from that budget, or is that all of it? And then
It assumes that every employee that has 32, that is hired for 32 or more hours, enrolls in health insurance.
Got it.
So it's, I guess, could be the highest of is the highest cost that we should anticipate for the health insurance. Not everyone enrolls in the health insurance.
Yeah, and the premium's also based on age, so I just did an average, since it's hard to assume that.
Any other questions?
Just one, Charlie. So this does or does not include the costs associated with adding the 45?
It does not,
It does not.
right?
I thought.
So just real quick, 4 things that I kind of identified as uncertainties. Pallet 45, there's a lot of uncertainty whether that would even happen. A lot of things need to have to be put in place to make it even possible. So if that gets pulled off this coming year, then that'll be a whole new expense and potentially new revenue, because we need to get support from the city for that. And then the negotiations with the union. And until that's resolved, we won't have a good handle on what our payroll costs might be. And then the food expenses, and that one is, I think the uncertainty is really about how much will we have to purchase versus getting donations. And then the last one,
Facilities.
the facility maintenance. And a lot of that is, as we work with the city, you might recall in our recent meeting, there was a expense, and then we thought, let's consult with the city and see if they can take a look at this and maybe cover that expense, on our behalf, so. And I think, you know, just talking with, the city about the maintenance expenses in particular, that was one that they raised up as they thought it could be significantly higher than what we were anticipating, so. Any other questions? We ready for adoption?
Need a motion?
We do need a motion.
Alright, I will move that we adopt the draft budgets as sent out with the agenda as our 2024 budget for the Lawrence Community Shelter.
Thanks, Rebecca. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chuck. Is there any other discussion? Okay, so the motion has been made to adopt the 2024 operating budget, and it's been seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is executive session. I've taken the liberty to draft up a potential text that can be used to move us into executive session. If someone wants to make that motion,
I'm closest, so I can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I move that the board recess into executive session in accordance with the non-elected personnel matter exception in KSA 754319B1 to deliberate on personnel matters related to the hiring of an executive director. The justification for the executive session is to protect the privacy of the applicants for the role of executive director. The board will reconvene in an open meeting in the auditorium at, we want 30 minutes or? Okay, at 6:15 PM after the executive session is concluded.
all right, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, is there any other discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
op- Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right,
I make a motion that we authorize the board president to extend an offer to the candidate that received the highest rating from all the board members and from the second interview panel, in the range of 90,000 to 120.
all right, is there a second?
I second that.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Seeing there's nothing left on our agenda tonight except adjourning, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Can I?
Oh, do you have something?
It's okay, we're early.
It's early and I had some, I would like for while the operations committee is present, and I know that oftentimes we are not, and that includes myself, Chuck, and John, thank you, that we try to set a meeting before end of the year. If that includes a Zoom meeting and everyone can be available, there's some agenda or some topics that we need to discuss for operations for Lawrence Community Shelter's emergency shelter report. And then December that I'd like to get on forward. So
I can keep the meeting open. Chuck, are you open to staying on a little longer?
Yes,
Okay, and then we can just go ahead and adjourn the full board meeting and you guys can have your discussion.
I do have a question. I don't know if this is an appropriate spot for this, but as board members, are there cautions that we need to take in speaking publicly in regards to the union efforts? I don't know if we're allowed, are we allowed to communicate with staff? What restrictions do we need to place on ourselves in any discussions?
I'm gonna go ahead and just add a little bit to our agenda, then I think that's reasonable.
I mean, I
Talk
think
about-
at this point, we're still trying to get legal advice. So at this point, I think, then, I mean, my intention is to follow whatever the labor relations requirements are. And that we don't know any of the details until after we have that meeting and kind of see what is asked of us. And so, I mean, the only thing I'm gonna say is, we're gonna follow what we're required to follow and engage in the process appropriately.
Well, I guess, my question came, I was at the commission meeting on Tuesday night, and just because it's easier to hear outside of the meeting room, I was out in the lobby with a lot of the staff, and I realized that I'm not clear in the situation that we're in right now, if I'm even supposed to be speaking with staff on any aspect of their job, the future of the organization, things of that sort. I don't know the guidelines on this one.
Okay, so thanks, Chuck. It is actually, you're raising a really important point, and I will do my best to kind of give a response, and hopefully we're all agreeable to this. So it wasn't clear to me either, and I had received some communication from staff who identified themselves as members of the union, but I didn't have any information about who represents the union. And so I reached out to Hannah, the union president, and asked her for guidance on that question. She wrote me back and said that Bella Kurtz is the point person for the negotiations with the union, and that the union, or negotiate with the employees at the shelter. The union will provide support and coaching to the employees as they embark on this process. And Hannah will, she asked that she be looped into communications with them about it. So what I then did was, once that was clear to me, I accepted that Bella is the official point person, and I responded to an email that she had sent to me and Melanie asking for our availability on 3 dates in January, 18th, 19th, and the 22nd. And I responded and included Hannah, and I believe I included the rest of the exec committee. Because in our previous, well, I forgot which meeting, but one of our meetings, we had discussed the exec committee kind of taking the lead on this. So from the board, I see it as the exec committee is the negotiating party from our board. And then from the shelter employees, Bella is the point person, and I believe she might have others involved, but I don't have any information to kind of clarify that at this point. I think that would come probably from Bella or whoever meets with us in January. So at the city commission meeting, I then also sent an email to Bella we had corresponded just in that last day or so, and just confirmed like we're good on the 18th. And then I made that announcement at the commission meeting. It just seemed appropriate to try to get that nailed down now that we know that she's authorized to be that person in our negotiations. So any other thoughts from the exec committee?
Well, I was just kind of Googling on the National Labor Relations Board page, and they have sort of an FAQ about like what employers and
Mhm.
board members can do and can't do. And I'm not on the Zoom meeting right now, but I can
Oh,
send that to you. if you
I
want.
did find
That'd
something
be great.
similar, and it was, it actually had some caution against communicating with people that don't represent the union. So that's where I was like, I'm not sure how to respond here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be best to only talk about the details through the actual negotiations.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we can talk to staff, but I don't think we answer any questions because quite frankly, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any
Yeah.
answers. So,
And I think it's important that, we hear it from whoever they've designated as their spokesperson. So,
right. I agree.
We'll have so many more answers after negotiations, and I just think that it's just, you know, anything we'd be saying right now would be speculation because it all relies on negotiation. So we should just, I think, minimize as much as possible, in my opinion. I mean,
So are we searching, our executive committee, are we searching for outside mediation? Are we working within the scope of the new ED and, working with what they might be able to make the connection? The 18th is not very far away from now, but, I'm assuming that there be something that the city does to assist or
No,
no?
the city won't assist in this matter.
Okay,
Yeah, they're actually, the legal team at the city, and this would be the same with the county. They're not, the National Labor Relations Board, the law that governs us is not the same law that governs, public sector employers. So they don't have familiarity. The city had recommended that we reach out to an attorney in Kansas City, and I did that. And had a brief phone call, and it was clear that he had the ability to represent us in the negotiation at a fairly steep cost. Or he could be available to consult us, which would be less costly. And I think at that point, you know, I said, thank you for your time, and then brought that kind of back to exec committee, and we'll enter in that conversation on the 18th. Hopefully to learn more about what the union wants, and then take stock and decide if we need to get an attorney or whatever. So at this point, I don't think we've had any other.
And we really
We're
do
kind of
have
waiting
to follow
for
the
that.
process. We can't.
Oh,
Yeah, we
As-
can't run the process.
yes, Chuck?
As an organization, are we member, and I, forgive me if I don't have the association correct, but there's a Kansas Council of Nonprofits or Kansas Association of Nonprofits. Is LCS a member of a statewide advocacy group of that nature? I mean, I know that other states, I've read some things coming out of Minnesota talking about union representation within nonprofit organizations. I just don't know if we've had that experience in Kansas yet, and if we could gain from others' experience.
So I know we're a member of Nonprofit Connect and they're more Kansas City based, but I know like of nonprofits, I know Kansas Holistic Defenders is a nonprofit that recently unionized, but there wasn't any, I mean, it's the lawyers. But I know Kansas Action for Children recently unionized also, and they worked with Jake Miller, who's an attorney in Kansas City, who might be, I mean, I'd be glad to reach out if we wanted just to have another sort of bid.
Yeah,
We are also
Yeah.
members of the Association of Kansas Nonprofits.
okay, so the Association of Kansas Nonprofits is the one that we're part of, Chuck.
Okay.
out of curiosity, Christina brought up a good point. I know we've got the date for the negotiations set. Depending on where we're at with the candidate, do you think it's depending on what start date looks like? Do you think that we would want to make sure that the candidate was available for that meeting?
I think we'd need to move forward one way
No
or
matter
the
what.
other.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
But
fair
you
enough.
definitely invite the
Yeah.
person.
yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm assuming that this, with the exec committee and Melanie, the union's been communicating with me and Melanie, so I think whether Melanie's in the role or a permanent ED, they'd be involved.
Got it. Okay.
Well, Chuck, thanks for bringing this up. That was probably important for us to discuss. Is there anything else that we want to cover before we adjourn? And then Chuck, you're gonna stay on. I'll keep the line open here so you guys can chat about your operations committee. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
And can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion about the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.